I have the pleasure of now welcoming to the stage the next session, which is part one of the RAISE Health Seed Grant recipients and their presentations.
This is Doug. He is a semi-retired vegetable breeder from Gilroy. And about 7 years ago, he had a CT scan to follow up on a history of tonsil cancer. The great news was there was no evidence of recurrent cancer. But unfortunately, he was found to have something called severe coronary artery calcification. This is plaque in the arteries that supply oxygen to the heart muscle and is associated with increased risk of heart attack and death. The good news is that we have quite a bit that we can do in order to prevent the risks associated with severe coronary artery calcium, from medicines to lifestyle changes. But the bad news was that in Doug's case, he was not informed of the presence of this disease for almost 5 years. He was only informed when a physician of his identified that he had high cholesterol and sent him to a cardiologist who reviewed the images themselves and quickly started Doug on preventive therapy. And Doug is not alone. In this recent meta-analysis conducted by researchers in patients who have incidental coronary artery calcium present, that means calcium in the arteries on a scan that was done for some other reason, in 31 to 44% of cases, that finding is not reported in the radiology report. Why? Well, maybe it's because the CT scan was done for some other reason, like for Doug, in checking up on the cancer, so it's not the focus of the study. Or maybe it's because it's not technically protocoled to look at the heart coronary arteries, because it's gated to and not gated to the heartbeat. But this is a missed opportunity, because while 1 million scans are gated, that means tied to the heartbeat, 20 million are non-gated, done for reasons other than to evaluate the coronary artery calciums, but provide really important information about heart health that can be acted upon. So Doug joined our team of cardiologists, radiologists, data scientists, as we asked the question, can we quantify incidental coronary artery calcium using AI to help guide preventive therapies? The algorithm was developed by Nish and David on the screen here, and FDA approved. And then our team went on to verify that these scores were actually associated with high risk. But I would argue that the algorithm development was the more straightforward part. The harder part was making sure that physicians and patients had the tools to actually act on this data. So this is a study led by Dr. Sandhu and Dr. David Marin. They took CT scans that had been done previously, ran the algorithm on them, and then notified patients' providers, usually the primary care provider, about the presence of this coronary artery calcium, and 2 weeks later informed patients. And they not only sent patients a picture of their own heart and their own coronary arteries, but they put a big circle around where the issue was. This led to significant improvements, a 7-fold increase in the prescription of statins, which are the mainstay therapy for addressing risk due to coronary artery calcium. And it wasn't just a one-time bump. Even after 18 months, the impact of the statin prescription persisted. Patients remained on the statin, even at that time. There are some limitations here. One is that this algorithm runs so far on a specific type of CT scan. 2, this pathway required involvement of the primary care provider to get patients access to statins, and not all patients have primary care providers in our system. And 3, this was under the context of research. And while there are over 1,000 FDA-approved algorithms and devices that use AI or ML, only a handful are in clinical practice. And that led us to the following proposal. 1, we want to validate an updated algorithm in low-dose CT scans. These are the kind of CT scans done for patients who are former smokers and we're evaluating for lung cancer. These same patients are at incredible high risk for coronary artery disease. The second is to assess ethical implications of an AI-augmented incidental coronary artery calcium program. And the third is to move from research to real-world clinical deployment in small groups, first with lung nodule follow-up, and then in the future, even engaging with our ED providers who are collaborators on this work about getting patients the care they need at any point in which they enter the healthcare system. This is what Doug had to say when he found out about his coronary artery calcium. In my case, the system failed to provide information preventing me from making healthcare decisions. I am confident technology exists to assist everyone in the system to deliver more accurate and timely care. I believe many of us in this room share Doug's vision. And it's important to recognize that it's not only going to take great AI tools, that's table stakes, but also the systems and the processes and the evaluation to make sure that the information that is provided is actionable. Thank you to the incredible team that has been working on this research and now clinical deployment with me. And thank you to RAISE Health for the support.
It's my honor to present our proposal on building personalized comorbidity score, which is designed to better reflect the health patient's complexity. So I want to introduce you to these two patients, patient A and patient B. Patient A is about age of 62, have lupus, long COVID, rheumatoid arthritis, and struggling with depression. And she also drinks a lot of alcohol and live in low income, have a low income, also live in a rural area with a limited access to care. And there's patient B, has AIDS, but very well managed, live stable housing, live close to Stanford, getting the best care and good insurance with a regular care. However, when you look at the Charlson comorbidity score, this patient A gets a score of 1 on the rheumatic disease. And patient B gets a score of 6 because of AIDS, even though it's well managed. And at the time this Charlson comorbidity score was built in 1980s, AIDS was a really serious condition, and it is still a serious condition, but the treatment has improved. And these patients, like patient B, can actually live stable and long. And patient A, conditions like lupus, long COVID, and depression, rheumatoid arthritis, they only count as one score 1, because depression and long COVID, which is like an emerging condition, doesn't really get included. And this is a huge problem. So Charlson comorbidity score, which is the most common comorbidity score, is a widely used tool in healthcare research. And it's so widely used, although it was built in 1980s, it has been still cited 7,000 times since 2023. And there are so many studies that don't even cite because it's such a widely used tool. And despite this, and also how it uses is it will be used in the risk adjustment, and also it will be used as a feature in a clinical model. And despite this reach, it hasn't kept pace with the complexity of the modern care. It doesn't reflect many common chronic mental or behavioral conditions, and also ignores the social context. And it also applies the same weight regardless of treatment advances, overlapping disease burden, and real-world vulnerability. However, it has been so efficient, so many people use it, but it's also frozen in time. That's why we are trying to build a personalized comorbidity score, which is comprehensive. It will be including mental health as not represented in this comorbidity scores, underrepresented diagnosis that wasn't really recognized at the time, and also includes some emergent conditions. And it will be context aware. It will capture social and behavioral risk factors, and cumulative. It will be reflecting the overlapping and interacting disease burden. And also scalable, large scale, real world, and cohort flexible. And usable, interpretable, and ready for research application. And this is just not a technical update, and we are thinking about rethinking the foundation that underpins the thousands of studies. And because comorbidity score don't just see quality in the background, it actually affects how we define the risk, how we identify some vulnerable population, and how we actually adjust the model. These patients one is like risky on paper, and then the other is risky actually in reality. And that's why we want to build a score, because if our tool can see that, the models and our care will continue to miss the mark. And that's why we're going to build a score. And when complexity matters, measurement should also consider that complexity.